In case you missed it, here's Dave and Cheryl's favorite moments of the week.
And this would have been Betty White's 100th birthday today. Sad that we lost her about 3 weeks ago, right before the new year. But thanks to a winter phenomenon that seems to be spreading all across the globe, Betty White will be remembered every time it snows in southwestern Michigan.
Yeah, that's because they've named a snowplow after her. So kind of similar to what we did here in Chatham-Kent, where they named the snowplows. They were running a contest at the same time in Michigan, where they named over 300 snowplows that are run by the Michigan Department of Transportation.
So they did a little bit more than we did here at Chatham-Kent.
Yeah, they did three, all across the entire state. And one of them for the southwestern Michigan region is called Betty Whiteout.
Betty Whiteout. That's fantastic. They started accepting suggestions last year from the folks in Michigan. The names aren't painted on the vehicles themselves, but they've been entered into the state's database, and you can actually follow them as they clear the roads over in Michigan. Gordy Plow.
Yep.
That you have to do that.
Excellent.
Have to do that. Aaron Burr. I like that one because he was kind of one of those gritty players for the Wings in, I think it was, the 90s. Mm-hmm. So Aaron Burr, that was great. Derek Sleater, among the other celebrity-inspired names on the list. And some other really good ones on there, too.
Edgar Allan Snow.
Yeah, that's good.
My favorite is probably Barry Sultan Sanders.
Of course. Yes, you had to throw Barry in there, too. I liked Cleopatra. I like that was a good one, too.
That's a good one. I love that.
Very good. It's a phenomenon going right across the globe. Michigan, one of the several states and cities that have initiated this. Of course, as you mentioned, Chatham-Kent did this in late 2021, and it started a long way away from here.
Over in Scotland, where they're called road gritters. They've given them all names, and you can follow them. And hey, you can follow the Chatham-Kent plows. Do you know Chatham-Kent has a plow tracker?
Yes, I did know that. Yes. Yeah. I haven't done that yet. Actually, well, it hasn't snowed a whole lot this winter.
So, I'm just checking it now. It looks like they are out in full force, clearing out. So if you want to see if a plow is in the area for you, you can go and check that out online through through the municipality's website.
chatham-kent.ca. As you get older, you certainly notice that there just isn't enough hours in the day. There's not enough time. Life is going by super quickly, and there's no time to do anything meaningful around the house. Well, that might not be true.
Yeah, because a lot of times people joke there's not enough hours in the day, but maybe there are, and we're just wasting them.
No, that can't be.
No, we're not on TikTok for 3 hours every night. What are you talking about? Well, a new poll found the average person wastes close to 2 hours a day. But not all of the time-wasting things the poll listed are easy to avoid. I mean, the top 3 offenders are being stuck on hold.
Oh, yeah.
No real control over that. Waiting in lines and sitting in traffic. So, yeah, those are big time wasters, but they're also things that you can't really control.
So the poll found the average person wastes 12 hours a week on stuff like that, and that's 624 hours a year, which, if you extrapolate that again, 26 days. 26 days a year. So almost a month of every year is wasted on mundane activities. A few other of the time draining and really brain draining activities. Scrolling through social media. That has to be right at the top, right?
Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. There's so many things to distract you with.
All of them.
Snapchat.
Yeah. So all the social media, and when you're sitting on the couch in front of the television.
Yep.
It's another huge one.
Flipping through channels on your TV, I would say trying to decide what to watch on your streaming service. Mm-hmm. Unless you're in the middle of binge watching a show and you're like, oh, I got to watch the new episode. A lot of times I do this all the time. I'm like, what do I want to watch?
Yes. See,
what am I in the mood for?
No matter if you have cable or not, you're still doing the same thing. Because if you have cable, you're going through the guide for hours on end. Yeah. But you're also doing that with your streaming services.
Yeah. I mean, I do it with my PVR. I'll be like, am I in the mood for a drama or do I want to laugh?
Right. Also, not only waiting for food to be delivered, but I think we were talking about this off the air yesterday with the, scrolling through the TV. You're also scrolling through menus. When you're wanting to pick something for food, you're spending a lot of time deciding what you want. So that's another thing we're wasting time on. Over half, 56% of people say they'd like to be more productive with their time. Only 56. I would think 100% would want to be more productive.
I guess the rest of them, they got things good.
I guess.
Got it down pat.
I suppose, but life is so hectic, we're just too tired to make it happen. That does also increase as you get older. People estimated that they got bored and, quote, have nothing to do an average of 3 times a day. But if we had more time on our hands, I don't know if that would change. We would just find more excuses.
You say you're too busy to do all these things, but then you say you're bored?
Mm-hmm.
That's quite a contradiction.
Just going to go have a nap.
And now it's time for
Random
facts.
1, 2, 3, 4. The reason the taste of artificial banana flavoring and artificial banana flavoring products doesn't taste like bananas is that it's based on a type of banana that was wiped out by a plague in the 1950s. Oh. So that's why we don't associate the taste with actual bananas now.
Yeah, because the bananas we have now are just one variety, one type.
Time to update those flavors.
You think they would? Hey, do you know that Australia has over 10,000 beaches? So you could technically visit a new beach every day for over 27 years.
I've got to think Canada has more, right? Just for the amount of lakes that we have.
But I don't know if there's necessarily beaches on them.
I was going to say, what qualifies as a beach? Because in Northern Ontario, you get a little strip of water and edge.
I was going to say, is a beach have to be sandy or can it be...
And it must have to be so many feet.
Rocky.
To qualify. All right, another random fact for you. The Backstreet Boys and TLC both passed on recording the song Hit Me Baby One More Time. It went to a brand new artist named Britney Spears. So she got that one instead.
I think it worked out well for her. And finally, did you know that Oregon and Ohio State played in the championship for the first ever college football playoff back in 2015? The two teams also played each other in the finals of the first ever college basketball Final Four in 1939. In case you're wondering, Ohio State won in football, but Oregon won for basketball.
There's your 4 random facts.
This has been today's edition of
1, 2, 3, 4. Random facts. Good morning, it's Dave and Cheryl. And you know, if you take one thing out of the past couple of years, I think maybe workplaces are taking mental health days a little more seriously these days.
Yeah, that's when you might take a sick day because you're not necessarily sick. You're just stressed or overwork. And I know a lot of companies now are straight up offering personal health days, they're calling them now. So it's totally separate from your regular sick days. It's for when you are stressed and overwork and just need a break.
So which day of the week is the best for a mental health break? The answer, obviously, is whenever you need one. But say you're feeling really stressed out and you're thinking, man, I need a day. Wednesday might not be the best day for it.
So Huffington Post recently did a little write-up on how Wednesdays might be a tempting day to take off, breaks up the week a bit for you. But here's 2 reasons why it might not be the best choice. One, they usually aren't the most relaxing day to take off because you're still sort of thinking about work the day before, and you end up stressing about having to go to work the next day. So it doesn't really end up feeling like an actual day off. And the other thing is that people that you work with are more likely to notice that you take a random day off in the middle of the week versus if you tack it on to a Monday or a Friday, make it a long weekend. People just assume, oh, you've got something going on or you're going somewhere, and that's why you need the day off.
Yeah, it's more of a social norm, right? To take a long weekend. So you're less likely maybe to have, any coworkers that you might have in your workplace, depending upon where you are, asking you questions about it.
Mm-hmm. Or your boss even. Although, now that we have these sort of, what do they call them? Like personal
leave days in some places, yeah.
Like a paid day off. That's not necessarily for a sick day. They can just be like, I need a day.
Yum. Science. It's not rocket science.
Check it out. I blinded us with science.
You ever meet someone and almost immediately forget their name?
You and I are both bad for that.
Oh, we meet so many people, but that's also a bit of an excuse sometimes. So you got to train your brain a bit.
I think it might more have to do with what this new study out of Northwestern found. They say you might be forgetting people's names immediately because you're not getting enough sleep.
So it just doesn't stick. I know there's tricks. You have to try and repeat the person's name multiple
times. Hi, Dave. Oh, hi, Dave. So nice to meet you.
But yeah, that's always been one of my biggest struggles. Hey, surgeons performed the first ever pig-to-human heart transplant on a 57-year-old guy in Maryland. So our bodies would normally reject organs from animals, but the pig was genetically modified to remove some of the genes to allow that to happen. This could be groundbreaking.
Yeah, could make a huge difference for a lot of people on organ transplant lists. Hey, the James Webb Telescope, of course, launched not that long ago, out flying in space now. And it was expected to work for about 10 years before it runs out of fuel and falls out of orbit. But it turns out last month's launch went really well, and it used less fuel than they expected. So now they think it could last 20 years.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm sure they were thrilled with that. Hey, in a worrying development, scientists have found new cracks in Antarctica's glacier called the Thwaites. It could signal a collapse in the next 5 years. Now, this glacier is about the size of Florida, and it's also known as the Doomsday Glacier, as its shrinking could indicate we're past the tipping point where a melt might be halted. And already the massive ice shelf's meltwater accounts for 4% of the global rise in sea level. So if that breaks off, it will likely accelerate the flow of ice off the continent of Antarctica and end up raising global sea levels by disastrous amounts, up to several feet or more.
You might think, oh, a couple feet, whatever. It makes a huge difference.
Along coastal areas, a huge difference.
Have you ever wondered how long the perfect hug should last? Experts say 5 to 10 seconds. So psychologists at the University of London found that a longer hug, one that lasts between 5 and 10 seconds, delivers a more positive impact compared to shorter hugs. They also learned that arm positioning, whether, crisscrossed, around the waist, over the shoulder, didn't matter. 1 second hugs are regarded as less pleasant and under control than the 5 to 10 seconds one. So they concluded, though, that after 10 seconds, you reach a plateau in pleasantness, and then it just becomes awkward.
Awkward and weird.
So 5 to 10 seconds, ideal hug timing.
Wasn't that the thing in the early days of the pandemic? Check on your friends that like to hug.
They're not okay.
All right, one more story for you, too. An injection of a newly developed drug has been shown to reverse paralysis in mice with severe spinal cord injuries.
Wow.
Amazing is that? It promises the regeneration of severed nerves and the repair of other vital tissues, allowing the rodents to regain the ability to walk within 4 weeks. The scientists say they plan to go straight to the FDA to start the process of getting this new therapy approved for use in human patients who currently have very few treatment options.
That's amazing.
It would be an amazing breakthrough. So, all the other stuff aside that we talked about, you talk about the first pig to human heart transplant, and now this, that's groundbreaking. Thank you, science, for out there, still being out there in the midst of everything else going on in the world with these groundbreaking developments. Well, when I was up in Sudbury this past weekend, it was cold. I mean, they had wind chill values around minus 35-ish. Temperatures were around, minus 19, minus 20. So what I noticed was so many people warming up their cars. And when I grew up in Northern Ontario, that was just something you did.
Yeah, well, and your dad probably told you, or your mom, like, oh, you got to warm up the car, you got to let the oil and the fluids get through the vehicle.
Well, should you be doing that? Do you need to do that with modern vehicles?
Well, AAA says you only need to let the engine run for about 30 seconds, or about as long as it takes you to get situated and buckled up in the car before driving off. So you don't really need to be out there 5-10 minutes before warming it up. AutoZone notes that some states and cities even have laws that restrict idling for environmental reasons and can carry big fines. So they say that all you need is 30 seconds in a newer vehicle for the oil to circulate and you'll be good to go.
So electric cars should be kept plugged in on cold days when possible, as they have, conditioning systems that keep the batteries at, ideal operating temperatures and that kind of thing. And they can also be programmed to heat the cabin without emitting any tailpipe emissions on top of it, too.
Now, the experts do say, though, you should consider an extended warm-up if you're having trouble scraping snow and ice off the windows, so you will need them to get defrosted. But they also say, a good scraper can help with that.
Now, do you have automatic shut-off? You have an automatic starter, right?
Yes.
On your vehicle?
Yep.
Does it shut off after so long?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, mine does the same. So I think it's 10 minutes, which is kind of cool, right? Enough time. I mean, it's probably more than enough time based upon the story, but enough time to kind of get that frost off the window if it's a little thick in the morning too, right?
Well, I started mine this morning. I mean, it's in the garage, but I still started up because when it's this cold as it is this morning, my heated seats and heated steering wheel kick on automatically. So they get in, you're like, ooh, nice and cozy on the tush.
Aren't we just a spoiled world, right? When you think about how we grew up. I remember we were talking about it because of when we were driving up north, it was getting colder and colder and colder, and the frost was starting to come onto the windows. I said, I remember being a kid in the back seat kind of trying to scrape the window.
On the inside.
On the inside to be able to look out. Or you'd put your hand against the window.
To melt it.
And you'd leave those prints on the window. Maybe you'd get yelled at, maybe you wouldn't. My dad actually had this plastic thing on the inside of the window that would keep the frost off of it. So out the side when he was driving, he could see. Because the inside of those vehicles would get a little frosty at times, right?
I remember my parents telling a story. So when they were first dating in college, my dad had a Volkswagen Beetle. And so with the engine in the back, it takes a while for the warm air to come to the front to defrost. So they'd be driving and my mom was wrapped up in a blanket and she'd be scraping the inside of the windshield for him. They're driving.
The things that we used to have to do, now we're like, I'd better start it early for the heated seats and the heated steering wheel. What about a block heater? You ever have a vehicle with a block heater?
I remember, I think my dad's diesel pickup had a block heater. And I think I remember maybe my mom's old Blazer. I think it's more the pickups had it. And yeah, you had to make sure you unplug that in the morning before you tried starting it up.
I had a co-host when I worked in Timmins that was Toronto born and raised, had never heard of a block heater, had no clue what that was. So we were at this auto place and they checked over her car and they said that to her and she had no idea. And she said actually when she had seen apartments for rent and they were talking about outside plugs and she's like, what are people plugging in radios in the parking lot having parties? What do you need a outside plug for? She quickly learned in minus 40 how important that is. Well, I know throughout the pandemic, there's been people traveling, but a lot of us have been paranoid about it and not wanting to do that. But as things eventually start to improve and more people travel, sleep is always a big issue.
Yeah, and I came across this article and sent it to you because you had just gone away, right, to go see some family up north. And I didn't know if maybe you had trouble sleeping while you're in a hotel. I know I always do.
I had to get a different pillow because both of mine felt like rocks. So I asked, can I have another one? Because my wife has some good ones and she doesn't want to trade. So yeah, that was a bit of an issue and then I got something a little bit better and it slept a little bit better.
So here are 5 sleep tips for travelers like Dave, who maybe you struggle getting a good night's sleep when you're away from home. The first one is, just trying to stick to your normal sleep schedule because we all have a circadian rhythm. You all kind of stick to it. And when it gets thrown off, that can cause sleeping issues.
I mean, if you normally go to bed at 10 o'clock, try and stick to that and make sure you're going to bed around the same time.
Especially if you're only going to be away for a few days.
Another one is listening to relaxing music that can help to induce some sleep. Nature sounds, meditation rhythms. Some people prefer ASMR. That's the type where people talk really quiet or make noises and things like that, which can, relax you maybe a little bit when you're not in your own home.
Also, you should, if you want to get a good night's sleep when you're on the road, do some physical activity. I know, if you're going somewhere warm, you just want to lie on the beach or go to the spa or not do much, take a break, but you should also, get up, go for a walk, do some physical activity. That'll help you sleep at night.
I mean, right now, as of today, the gyms are still closed in hotels. However, that's going to change again as these restrictions in Ontario start to, let up a little bit. Another one, expose yourself to light as often as you can. So getting out and going for a walk. Yeah, it's cold. Bundle up. No matter where you may be, if you're traveling north, you're traveling south, that's not as big of an issue.
But that light helps with your body's natural sleep-wake cycle. And finally, create a comfortable environment in your bed away from home. So if you're like Dave, call down to the front desk, ask for another pillow or different pillow maybe, or maybe bring your own pillow along with you. And make sure to also play with the thermostat. Get the temperature right so that's similar to like what you would have at home.
That's a tough one. We struggled with that in the hotel room we stayed at.
Too hot or too cold.
You've been listening to Dave and Cheryl's favorite moments of the week.